and welcome to today's episode of the Business Meets Fitness podcast. I hope you enjoy this episode. I have Jamie Alderton on today. He was a best-selling author. He is also a fitness model and he is a well-known personality in the fitness industry. He has built a very solid personal brand as well as a business. He's a gym owner. He's done a lot of things and he also used to be in the military. Today's episode is a really good one. If you guys normally listen on YouTube, then I really advise trying to listen on the podcast app because I feel like you'll have a much more seamless experience. So there's some links down in the description box below. Whether you listen on iTunes or Android, you can get a link whichever suits you better there. You can also head to www.businessmeetsfitness.co.uk and you can listen there. So guys, I hope you like that episode, and if you are someone who is wanting to build your personal brand, then make sure to sign up for the email list for my personal branding course that is going to be coming out. It is called Impact Through Influence and it's going to be awesome. So if you're wanting to become an impact influencer, then make sure to sign up to the email list in the description box below and you will be able to get £200 off when the course comes out, which is going to be in March. So guys, enjoy the episode, make sure to share and enjoy. Jamie Alderton, it has been a while. How are you today?
Lauren, very good, thank you. I think it was, what was it? When did I see you last? Last May, wasn't it? Body Power.
The year before last, I think. We didn't even chat properly last year.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and then before that, it was lunch in London in Victoria.
Oh my gosh, yeah, when I was a true fan of yours.
There you go.
I still am. That was a while back. No, so how are you? How are things?
Good, really good. Started off 2018 with a bang. One of the biggest things that I do every single year, obviously we're in February now, is at the end of every year I write down the things that were successful and things that weren't, and brutally honest with those things, and then look at ways to improve those weaknesses.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that because it's all about turning struggle into strength. And I think that you are a great ambassador for that because we were just chatting before I hit record on the podcast about your younger self, Jamie, and how do you want to just tell your story a little bit and just give people kind of a bit of insight where you've been? Because, well, I'll give a sneak preview, but I'd love it if you were to just touch upon your time in the military. Because I think that that's something that, you know, a lot of people perhaps, well, they can't really relate to at all. So I think it's something cool for the listeners to hear about.
Yeah, I think, I could scan all the way back to when I was a kid. I was a bit of a little shit, if I'm being honest. Really bad attention deficit disorder, but I didn't want to do anything. I didn't do it. Easily distracted, but kind of clever with it. Kind of thing. I think that's what frustrated the teachers, is that I'd only use it if I wanted to, but I never did. So I left school and I was in college, messing it all up because I'd spend more time getting drunk than I was actually doing the work. And I left college with one of the 2 years worth of certifications. I was just like, right, there's no way I'm going to go to university because I'm literally going to be a full-time alcoholic. So decided to join the army because it's something I wanted to. I was actually into fitness in between the pub, and and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to push myself, and I knew I needed a person on my shoulder telling me what to do. I needed somebody to direct me, and the British Army helped with that. I joined. I was a communication systems operator in there. Was there for 7 years. Did 2 tours of Iraq and had a fantastic time. Really enjoyed the army. But for me, it was time to leave. I always looked at the army as a stepping stone onto something else. But in those 7 years, a lot of things changed with me. A lot of things were kind of drilled into me, which are very much automated now. It's that whole self-discipline, self-drive, and it's building up that kind of, no one's going to do anything for you. You've got to go and do it for yourself. It's kind of contradictory to what you think with the army, because obviously you have someone telling you what to do. But when you leave the army, you kind of still crave that. And then it took a while from leaving the army to realize that there was never ever going to be that person now telling me what to do, because that's the reality of life. No one tells you what to do. You've got to go and do these things for yourself. So you have people that wait years and years and years for someone to tell them what they need to do. And then they suddenly realize, actually, no one's coming to save you. You've got to try and figure these things out for yourself. So that was kind of my experience with the army. A lot of people who leave the army actually they don't become that successful. A lot of the reason being is because they don't have that person on their shoulder telling them what to do. And they don't figure out that there is never, ever going to be that person there to direct them. So what I kind of channeled my energy into when I left the army was competing. Because for me, that was an imaginary person on my shoulder saying, get up, eat food, train at the gym, and work towards an outcome-based goal, which very much for the British Army, you are very outcome-based focused because you are training for operational tour, you're deploying on operations, and then you're doing regimental duties. So you kind of always got something to look forward to, which is very much like, short and long-term goals. So that's what I've always been like. I've always been really, really kind of focused in an outcome-based goal. And over my time of, achieving that kind of thing, I kind of realized it wasn't about the outcome. It was about the processes, because although you can achieve a result from an outcome, you tend to lose it pretty quick if you didn't understand the processes that it took to get there. You see this with nutrition, you see this with training, you see this with mindset. When you transition this to fitness, you have all the people looking to lose weight and their outcome-based goal is to look a certain way. But they're not thinking of the processes that it takes to look that certain way. They choose the wrong ones. They choose ones that are trying to get there as quickly as possible. And these are the things that are not sustainable, which is why if they do manage to get the result, they don't keep it. So for me now, my whole focus is on daily processes, not focusing on the outcome goal, but having it in mind and looking at the things and the steps that you can do and achieve daily to get there.
Jamie, I absolutely love how you started to speak about process-based goals, because this is something that I'm absolutely huge on. I think that the listeners of the podcast will be just being like, yes, Jamie, because it's something that I speak about a lot. And I think it's something that's changed so many lives, because it's a very simple switch of the mind that you have. And you're just like, okay, I'll focus on these small processes every single day, and that will lead me to the outcome. And it's so simple, yet so underutilized, I think, in people's fitness journeys and business, I suppose. I think it's pretty much because it's not as glamorous.
No, but it's also how our brains are conditioned,
Yeah.
And I don't want to get boring on the whole science and everything like that, but
we love that on the Business Meets Fitness podcast. We love the science.
Okay, cool. Let's say your brain's about 200,000 years old. So when the environment which we live in now is very, very different to, the environment when our brains were first kind of created.
We were cavemen.
Exactly. But you got to understand that our brains are wired for immediate return environment. So if we're hungry, stress increases and we instantly get food. If we're cold, we instantly seek shelter. So anything that we want gets solved pretty quick within a short period of time. We're very much in a delayed return environment now. If we go to work, we don't immediately have the money to pay our bills. If we go to the gym, we don't immediately lose weight and get in the shape of our life. So when we're conditioned to believe that, instant gratification equals results, and it's not like that anymore, you can understand why we constantly have stress, because stress is obviously a motivator to tell us go and do something. So if we're stressed for a long period of time to go and do something and we're not achieving that result, that stress loses its ability. Stress in a small dose is very, very good for you because it causes you to make action. But stress for a long period of time is very, very detrimental, which is why people are so stressed, because they're not achieving the things that the stress is causing them to, or for a short term is making them achieve things.
Yeah, for sure. So Jamie, have you had any times in your life where you feel like you've kind of had long-term stress and it's caused you to act in a certain way or do a certain thing or achieve a certain outcome?
Very much so. I think every year I kind of learn to get better at these things. You learn to juggle things, you learn to manage things a lot better. But I've always pushed myself into these uncomfortable positions in able to understand and get better. So many people, as soon as they get comfortable, they get lazy. I got comfortable and lazy just if I kind of rewind back to before I became a personal trainer. I had left the army. I had a really good job. I was working in Kenya. I was a security advisor for the UN. I had a driver. I had a 6-bedroom house, which I was sharing with a friend with a pool. Had a chef. And I was, I had kind of everything but nothing because I was just too comfortable. I was too lazy, and what happened is I got made redundant. Best thing that ever happened to me in the world, because then I had to have that stress to do something about it. Whereas if you've got everything on a plate, you get lazy.
It's all about how you channel the stress, I suppose, because some people would have taken that redundancy and it would have absolutely ruined them. And I guess you used it in a positive way, perhaps through what you'd learned in the military or just your general mindset.
It's that same thing that I say all the time. No one's going to sort this out for you.
Yeah,
you can sit there at home and have pity on yourself, but no one cares. No one cares, and I think if that's something I can drill in, people get triggered by that. It's like, no one cares. Like, no one cares if you consistently post on Instagram and build your following. No one cares if you consistently put the work in and, build the physique that you've always dreamed of. No one cares. Your family and that love you as you are. Your friends, they don't care. As long as you're there to go and support on the phone with them and chat to them, they couldn't give a shit. When you understand that, it's just like, what do you want to do? And when you understand no one's going to do it for you, it's like, what steps are you going to make to achieve that? And understand that if you are going to achieve that, you're going to mess it up completely multiple times until you figure out the right way to do it.
Yeah, Jamie, I love your no BS approach to fitness and just general life. And I think that's why a lot of people respect you. I think one thing actually, while we're on this topic, that I'd love to quickly touch on is the whole fast cake hands thing. Do you want to explain to our listeners what this, I suppose it's become it's just become a well-known thing that people associate with you. So
yeah, I mean, I had a viral video a couple of years ago and said, you're not sensitive to carbs, you just have fast cake hands. Stop eating fucking carbs. And the whole fast cake hands things is, subliminally, a lot of us do things that we don't actually remember because they're so fast and they're so habitually done. Some people can say, oh, I eat healthy all the time, but they forget that they had a Domino's every Saturday for the last 6 weeks, because that's a very automated process in their brain where they haven't really registered as that being an issue. So when I say fast cake hands, it just means that, you're not really being truthful to yourself. So many times whenever you get triggered about something, that someone says something to you, that's the time to stop and ask, why am I getting so annoyed? Because 9 times out of 10, it's because you're either not doing something or you're lying to yourself. And as soon as you understand that self-awareness and go, hang on a minute, why am I so annoyed by that? Usually it's because it's having a mirror in front of you saying you're not doing something. And this is, the whole difference between, and I did a post on this about understanding envy. And envy is kind of 2 things. You have a good envy and a bad envy. You have an envy which you look at what people have had and it inspires and motivates you to do the same. These are your inspirations. These are the people that you look up to and work hard to achieve what they have. That's a really good envy to have. A lot of entrepreneurs have that envy. They follow the people that inspire them to get better. But on the other hand, you have other people who have malicious envy. They see what others have and then they put them on a pedestal hoping that they fall off, because they think that that person thinks that they're better than them. But in actual fact, they're not. They're just doing what needs to be done to get where they need to be. And that's being consistent, caring about others and giving value. It's so much easier, however, to say to people, oh, well, that person's an idiot, or that person doesn't know what they're saying, or, oh, well, that person's taking steroids, or, oh, that person I know has got an eating disorder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because that is an instant thing to your head to say, I don't need to do that now. Because as soon as you put that person on a pedestal that they're an idiot or that's unattainable, it makes you feel a lot better, because it means that you don't have to do the work in order to achieve that thing.
Yeah, well, Jamie, I think that is going to be something that hits home for a lot of us. I think that I've always had it in my mind that jealousy is the worst trait. But what you said there just then about how you can kind of use envy in a positive manner, I think that's a very, very good point. And I'd never ever thought about it in that way, because you always have people who'll be like, oh, I'm so jealous of you, or you may say to yourself, oh, I'm so jealous of them. But you can use their position in order to motivate you, as you said, to get to where they are today. And I think that's... Oh, sorry, you go.
No, sorry. But I remind people at the end of my seminars, at the end of my talks, on everything, one thing I say, I am nothing special. You are now talking to a person who failed at most of his GCSEs, who spent most of his years at college, drinking beer. He spent a lot of his life, just being a little shit. And I think it was a click in my head one day, probably less than 5-6 years ago, that made me realize, actually, where I currently am doesn't always mean where I'll always be. And the only person that's going to sort this out is you. You can change your situation where you are at now. And that comes down to reading, that comes down to investing time in yourself. And I think most importantly, building up self-confidence in your ability to do these things too.
Yeah, so Jamie, would you say that you've always been a confident person, or is that something that's come through kind of all the competing and the success that you've had?
Yeah, I've always been a very competitive person.
Okay.
I've always kind of believed in myself, but that doesn't mean that I've had, the right thought process to get that success. So I would channel a lot of energy and confidence into the wrong things, because, too much confidence can be a bad thing as too little confidence. And I would say when I was younger, I had overconfidence. And it's probably something that you see these days, is you see people pretending that they're confident to mask their insecurities. I was a naturally confident person, but I was talking the talk, but not walking the walk. So, I was saying the things, but if you really looked at the things that I was doing, I probably wasn't doing it. And that's where a lot of people I see today, it's so much easier to say something than it is to do it. And I've always been, a lot of things that have changed these days is that, I like to be known as a person that says what they're going to do and does it. That's the key to integrity, being a person that says they're going to do something and see it through. This is a great business tool as well. If you are reliable, if you have that integrity, and people know you as a person that says they're going to do something and does it, then you're always going to have business. You're always going to have people trust you. And that's an important thing for me. But also for me, if I say I'm going to do something, it makes me do it, because I'm like, shit, now I've got to do that. I've done that with everything. I told people I was going to build a gym. I told people I was going to write a book. I told people I was going to push a sled for 24 hours, push the sled for 24 hours. Told people I was going to run backwards for 24 hours, run backwards for 24 hours. And all of these things were said months before I was actually doing it.
Because then I suppose when you're telling people, especially when you have a following as large as yours, then you are held accountable, and you have to do it then if you are a man true to your word. And obviously in business, in life, you want to be someone who is seen as honest. And if you then don't do it, it's as though you're kind of a dishonest person. People won't trust you, people won't buy into you, and essentially they'll stop following you and stop believing in you. So this kind of brings me on to, I suppose, your whole personal brand, Jamie. So you left the military, you went and worked for the UN abroad, and then I believe you came back and started your own fitness studio.
Yeah, that's right. I literally, I had a really good job, but the problem was that I put all the money into a mortgage with my wife, and I was like, oh, that's all right. I still got this job for another year. We can get our savings up. And the next week I got made redundant. So I had about £800 in my bank and literally no job whatsoever. So I was just like, what on earth am I going to do? And that's when, I sat down, I wrote on a piece of paper the things that I'm good at and the things that I want to do. And everything was kind of pointing towards personal training. And I never thought about looking at it as a career, because I always looked at personal trainers in the gym, miserable, charging £10 an hour and working every hour under the sun. And I was just like, right, I enjoy this fitness stuff, but if I was to look like that and do that, then it's going to destroy me. I'm going to turn my passion into something that I'm going to resent. And some people actually do. But as soon as I said, right, I'm going to be a personal trainer, fortunately, I had a credit card, so I whacked the whole course on my credit card. I found a studio about 7 miles up the road, rented that, put it all on a credit card. I think I put about 16, 17 grand on the credit card, and then just got to work. Borrowed my dad's bike, cycled up to there every day, and just worked my tits off, to be honest. What I was doing is because it was on an industrial estate, the industrial estate was only open Monday to Friday. I'd have to let everyone into the gate early in the morning. I'd have to let everyone out through the snow and the rain. And snow and rain, I'd still obviously cycle home. But I was in my element. one thing that changed in my head with that was this was the first time where I was in control of my life and no one was telling me where to be and what to do. So regardless of it raining outside or snowing, I was in complete control to be able to get to that studio and train people. And I think that was my biggest business, learning curve ever, because there's me, never ever run a business in my life, started personal training on a studio in the countryside 7 miles out of town, on an industrial estate, and it's by a prison with no passing traffic. How do I get people here? And within 6 months, I was literally a fully booked trainer there, and built my entire business out within 3 years there. So much so that I, was able to leave that place and build my own gym facility, which is now Grenade Fit.
That's amazing, Jamie. So during that 3-year period, is that when you began posting to social media and developing your kind of online persona?
Yeah, I mean, I started Facebook in 2011. So when I started, that was one of the reasons that I decided to become a personal trainer, because I had a fitness page and I had about, what did I have? I had about 4,000 likes on my Facebook page. And I just spent that Facebook page just giving people advice, following up my own training diary, et cetera, but I'd never really looked at it as a business. It was more of a, Facebook back in 2012 was more of a hobby thing.
Yeah, it's like when I started Instagram, it's kind of developed from that now. But yeah, way back when, people didn't really see it as a business or that you'd ever be able to make a kind of money or get clients through it.
Yeah, I mean, I found a screenshot of Instagram from 2012. So that's what 6 years ago, and I had like 3,000 followers. So I was like, what the hell? I've literally been at this social media malarkey for 7 years now.
Yeah. But that was back 3,000 followers back then would have been probably the equivalent of like 1 million.
Yeah, I had 10,000 likes on my Facebook page, and I was the second biggest fitness model in the UK.
That's insane. That's mad. It just shows how much it's changed.
What's funny though is if I posted on it, 10,000 people would see it.
Yeah.
Which is probably, goodness knows how much. I mean, what they say now is for every 100,000 likes you have on your Facebook page, 300 people see your posts. So put that into perspective. If 5-6 years ago, I was posted to 10,000 people and 10,000 people saw it.
Yeah, well, you got to pump money in now to see it. That's why it's so important to kind of be have top of mind awareness in your industry, I suppose, these days. So yeah, so obviously ever since then, and you still now have a very strong personal brand, and it's something people associate different things with you. So something for me that I associate with you is like a no BS approach to fitness, always focusing on your goals and just being success driven. That's how I think a lot of people see you. And so what would you say is the main kind of few things that have been able for you to, that sentence did not come out right, the main few things that have helped you develop your brand to be where it is today?
Lots of different things, as you start to grow a business, you start to go through different stages of it. I'm just reading a really interesting book, and I highly recommend any entrepreneur here to read it. And it's the E-Myth Revisited.
Okay.
Now, if you have a personal brand, you probably don't need to worry about this until you're looking at getting 5 or 6, 10, 15 maybe staff, because that's when you're going to go through these stages. And what the E-Myth talks about is looking at a business through infancy, through all the way through to adulthood, and you go through different stages. When the business is in its infancy, it's usually the most exciting because you have a small little personal brand, you've got a nice income, and that's what I had with my first gym studio. I had a really nice income in there. It was just me. I could have as many clients as I liked. I used to get about 10 inquiries a day, so I could pick and choose what I wanted, and it was fantastic. But the thing is that if I got hit by a bus, there was no one there to take up the reins. So that's obviously where my business evolved into hiring staff. So I opened up Grenade Fit, and had started off with 10 people working for us, and things change a hell of a lot then, because you're no longer having the business come all to you, you're relying on other people then to grow your business. And that's a fantastic position to be in because it enables you to have a day off from time to time. But even though you get to that stage, you still have the mentality of how you got to where you are today. And what I understood, and the biggest learning curve which took me a good year to 18 months while I was doing it, is, your biggest asset is your business's biggest weakness. Because as much as I was concerned about taking myself out of the business, or if I get hit by a car, no one can run it, I am now a disadvantage to the business because, as a business grows, there's only so many hours you can do. And in order to scale a business, you need to focus on allocation of time and getting other people to do the things which you are very, very good at doing and do a lot faster than people. But the only reason that they don't do those things fast is because you're not allowing them to do it. So when I opened up my gym as the director, I was on the reception desk 40 hours a week. I'd be building the business 40 hours a week. And then I'd be doing all my socials and everything else for 30 to 35 hours a week. So the first 6 months of my business, I was working 110, 115 hour weeks. And I loved it because I liked the hustle, but it was probably the biggest learning curve, but the stupidest thing I ever done. Because lots of people will tell you not to do that and to work on your business rather than in your business. But you have to go through these things and learn the mistakes yourself. So very much now, obviously, my evolution with my business is focusing on scale, growth, and giving other people opportunities to help me grow something incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as entrepreneurs, we can get very attached to our businesses because, they're our babies. And especially if it is your personal brand, that is you. And having to actually directly let people into your life is incredibly scary. And that's something that I've gone through recently myself. I think that kind of giving over some of the power and giving over some of the tasks is, it is a really scary thing, giving trust to other people. But when you let go of that, it enables and opens you up to so many more opportunities and doing things that you really want to do. For example, Jamie, all of this charity work you're doing, which is absolutely incredible. Now, Jamie, I have to ask you, what is it like running backwards for 24 hours?
Long, hard.
Come on, give us some more.
It was probably the hardest training I've ever done when it comes to endurance events. The year before, I pushed a sled for 24 hours.
I watched that.
Yeah,
I saw some of that on your Facebook, I believe it was.
Yeah, that was tough. And the trouble is, when you do something like that, you want to try and top it. And I just said, I'm going to run backwards for 24 hours. And I know it's the right thing to do when people look at you like you're insane. Because for me, it's all for charity. And if you're going to raise as much money as you can, I can't exactly go on my Facebook page and say, hey guys, I'm going to do a 10K run today. Can you donate money? And be like, yeah, but anyone could do a 10K run. And I think that's the thing that makes it challenging. Like Tough Mudders, obstacle races, I love them, but I look left and right and there's hundreds, if not thousands of people doing it. It's nothing special. The record I was hitting for the backwards run, only one person in the world has attempted it. So in 6 billion people on the planet, only one person's been stupid enough to go, do you know what, I'm going to run backwards for 24 hours. And that makes it, for me, exciting because it's something that's, challenging and no one would ever think of, which is what drove me to do it. And I remember the first hour of running backwards, I was just like, holy shit, this is going to be hard. And it did. Over the 6 months of training, it broke me in two. I had swollen Achilles, I had inflamed plantar fascia. I couldn't walk for 2 days after training, but I just pushed through. And at the end, I ran, I think it was 109 kilometers backwards in 24 hours. So I was pretty happy. And the most important thing is it was for charity, and we raised just under £22,000, which was fantastic.
That's absolutely incredible. Just out of interest, which charity was it that you chose?
So there's a children's charity called Chestnut Tree House, and this is a small little place that works with life limited children. So any children between the ages of 2 and 10 that live in West Sussex can go there for free for 2 weeks a year and be looked after. And that's a huge weight off a lot of parents' parents' energy, parents' time, because, when you've got a life limited child, they need 24-hour care. And that is emotionally and physically draining. And to be able to have this amazing place which relies on charity funding that can take a little brunt of that for a couple of weeks a year, and they can break it up into a couple of days, every 3 months, or they can do a whole 2 weeks. And it just enables a little bit of a respite for the parents, but they're solely reliant on donations.
Yeah.
And, it's very expensive to keep a place like that open. So that gave me a huge kind of boost with this kind of backwards rung, because it puts things into perspective. It's like, how are you going to manage to endure that pain for 24 hours? I'm like, well, how does a mum and dad endure the pain for up to decade, 15 years of their child, and then has to watch them pass away before they do? You put that into a perspective compared to me running fucking backwards for 24 hours. This is nothing. And that comes down to that mindset and that perspective of why you do certain things.
Wow, Jamie, that's just really hit me hard, actually, because wow, gosh, because my brother, he's actually he's disabled, and he goes to places just like the place that you're talking about. So I've been thinking about things that I can do for charity, and in this moment you've really made me realize that my thoughts have been too small, and I need to start thinking bigger about what I can do to actually make a difference. And wow, that's really hit me. But anyway, so I hope it has for some of the listeners as well. So anyway, you have a daughter, I know. So how has being a parent changed your outlook on life?
Very much so. I mean, when I first started with this fitness malarkey, I was very much very, very selfish person. I mean, anyone who competes at a high level has to be selfish. You have to look after number one. You have to prioritize your own nutrition, training, the lot, in order to succeed. And I was very, very selfish. I look at selfishness and selflessness as a kind of a scale. If you are too selfish, you need to focus on being less selfish. If you're too selfless, that can be also detrimental, and you need to focus on being more selfish. One of the biggest things that I found with Eliza being born in 2013 was putting others before me, putting the wants and needs of others before me. Now, do I say that everyone should do that? No, you should always sort your needs before other people. But I was in a place of extreme selfishness, where I needed to start going back up that scale to a bit more selflessness. And when I started to put others before my own wants and needs, a lot of things changed for me. My business boomed. My happiness boomed, because I didn't used to, I no longer put the blinkers on and was just focused on myself. It was having a balance of having my own needs and having the needs of others. It was more 50-50 than 100-0. And to see that I got a result from that is always going to be, what's going to keep you doing that thing. If you change your mind on something and you get the same, if not better result, then you're always going to change to that thing. And it's always important to know where you go on that scale, because as much as that changed my mindset when it came to, to Eliza being born, to my business, that instantly shot me up the scale within 18 months into extreme selflessness. And that was putting the needs of everyone else before the needs of myself, which when I opened my gym, and that was the thing that I was doing for a year. I was working for other people and not actually focusing on my wants and needs. And then I was like, shit, I've just gone from super selfish, only caring about myself, to super selfless, only caring about other people. And that's when, it's very interesting, because any book that's ever probably been launched in the last 10 years has got the ideas from somebody else. It's been bastardized, shall we say, from someone else's interpretations. And there's an interesting book by Aristotle, and it was, this book's 2,500 years old, and he was talking about finding the mean. And I was just, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, fuck. What he's talking about is, looking at the mean between two things. There's a very deep thing called the Kybalion, which is Hermetic philosophy, and that talks about the principles of polarity. That selfishness and selflessness are the same thing because they're on the same scale. If you're being there, there is no. It's hard to explain, but when you look at them as the same thing, and you just need to alter your scale, you can look at the right steps to do that. And once I realized that I wasn't looking after my own needs, I needed to, the reality is before I needed to start helping more people, but now I need to start telling more people to fuck off because, I was just helping too many people. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of things changed with my social media. I used to answer every single Facebook message. I used to get back to every email. And then I realized that was taking 4 hours of my day doing that. Mm. So when I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. Fuck off. If I get back to you, well done. If not, unlucky. And what that enabled me to do is have an extra 4 hours with my daughter, extra 4 hours with my wife, and to re-energize. And it was that quick change that got me back down to that kind of balance scale that enabled me to help more people, because you can't serve others from an empty vessel.
Such a good point there, Jamie. I suppose you can also kind of look at it as like a volume dial. I know you was kind of talking about at a scale, but so there are sometimes, for example, let's just take it as when you were, writing your book, there might have been times where you had to be a little bit more selfish because at that period in your time, in your life, you have this specific goal that you really, really need to focus on. And then that allows for other times in your life you to be a little more selfless. And so I suppose it's, as you said, it's all about the mean and just balancing it all out.
Yeah, a lot of people try and find that balance, but it's not finding the balance, it's understanding what balance is. So there are times where you need to up that volume, and there are times when you need to turn it down a little bit. But what you need to do is literally do a self-assessment every few months or so and go, whereabouts am I? And what do I need to do do I need to turn it up or obviously shut it down?
Yeah, and I think it's all down to kind of, this is getting real deep, but it is genuinely super important. But it's, I suppose, finding your why and why you're doing what you're doing, and what is going to make you happy, and overall, what's a balanced and happy life for you. And then just, I suppose, speaking about the whole book and everything, so you obviously have written a book, Mindset with Muscle, and so I just wanted to know about kind of the whole period of going through that and writing that, and how it's helped you kind of leave your legacy, and what you've kind of got from it.
Well, a lot of it was more of a challenge for myself. I failed GCSE English. When I told someone I was writing a book, they laughed. So they're like, well, how are you going to do that? Which, if anyone ever says that to me, I'm very much driven by spite. So I'm just like, well,
watch me.
Yeah. Well, I said, well, it's not just going to be it can't just be a book, then it has to be a bestseller. And a lot of people, they don't really understand how my brain works.
Don't worry. I got you.
Were they doing, well, I did launch the book 8 hours later. It did become a bestseller. So it was great, fantastic.
Hey.
But the main thing is that, I'm not a natural writer, but I do, I did want to get something out there. I did want to get a book that, in the time that I'd looked to write the book, I'd read about 100 books. And the thing that I enjoy doing on social media is taking complex subjects and what I call drawing them out in crayons. If anyone wants to kind of research this, it's called the Feynman technique. It was a guy who a quantum physicist who was able to articulate very complex subjects very easily. And that's what a lot of people need to do. What is this really deep, neuroscientific experiment say about something that I can then put into a nice, funny video to make people understand? And I very much wanted my book to be very complex subjects on habits, on mindset, drawn out in crayon and made nice and easy to do in a 140-page book. And to go through some simple systems that you can do for yourself in order to achieve those things. So that's where the idea for Mindset with Muscle came. A year before that, I'd launched my podcast. I'd listened to 50 or 60 of the brightest people on there who have come from nothing and are now, very successful people. And at the end of the day, success leaves clues. So from the books that I read and from the people that I listened to, I was able to compile this into a very quick to read 30,000 word book.
Awesome, that's amazing. And so do you think, what are your main kind of, what are the main things that you were trying to get across in that book to kind of share with people to leave an impact on them?
I think a lot of people, the first chapter, I really talk about problems and solutions. A lot of people want to lose weight. So I'd have someone come to me and say, oh, Jamie, I need to lose 20 pounds. But that would be the problem. But then you still not achieved that. And the reason that you haven't achieved that is because you haven't found the right solution. So the problem isn't that you've got 20 pounds to lose. The problem is really, why are you 20 pounds overweight in the first place? Because once you understand what that is, then you can make the right steps to get that transformation. Because you already know the solution is to lose weight, to lose 20 pounds. But that's not the problem. The problem is you don't respect yourself enough, or you're too selfless and put others first to care about yourself, or there's something there that is stopping you from being able to consistently achieve what you know needs to be done. So it's just getting you to delve deep into things and looking at them differently. That's very much like kind of the first chapter. And then I very much talk about habits and routines. I'm very big on creating habits and routines, creating sustainability, and being patient with a lot of things as well. Because we're very much, as we spoke about, very instant gratification, want it now kind of mentality. When anything that's ever been sustainable has come from many, many years of hard work.
It's all about, that deferred gratification, which I think it's very easy to lose sight of when you want something now, which I think especially a lot of people who are listening to this podcast right now are probably young entrepreneurs, people who are trying to find success in their fitness journey. And if they just remember that it's all about the long term and the end goal, while they're doing these what may seem like mundane daily tasks, then they'll get to that outcome and they'll feel real good about it. So Jamie, perhaps maybe what are some of the daily tasks and process-based goals, as it were, that you implement into your life in order to allow you to reach your big end goals?
So a lot of it is most importantly patience, as I said. I know where I want to be. I've got an 8-year goal now, and I'm doing the steps that it takes to get there. So that's done. That's happy ticking a box. Now I reverse engineer into what I need to do daily in order to do that. First and foremost, I need to be focused more on my business and its growth in order to achieve that financial outcome. For myself, it's about daily processes to make sure that I'm able to do that. And for that, it's getting enough sleep, not consuming social media as much or if at all, producing great quality content, spending an insane amount of time daily to absorb and learn things, and to spend a lot of time appreciating what I've already got.
Amazing. That's brilliant. And I think that's something that the listeners are going to be able to take away for sure. So finally, I just wanted to ask you about your podcast. I know that you said that it is making the great return, because I used to listen to your podcast all the time, and I was wondering where it floated off to.
So as 2016 was the year I opened my gym facility. It was also the year I wrote my book. It was also the year that I was doing my podcast. It was also the year I was doing my charity event.
The volume was up high.
Yeah. And a lot of that's very selfless, but also, I've got a family. I've got to have a social life. I took 2016, I had 2 days off. So that puts into perspective on that. I was working a lot, and part of being selfish and having to change that equation was looking at things that needed less focus or needed to be dropped in order to obviously focus on my priority, which was my business. Now, I loved my podcast. I loved doing it. But the same with anything. When something starts becoming a chore rather than a passion, you need to question that. I consistently launched my podcast episodes every single week without fail for 73 weeks straight. The minute that I felt that I couldn't keep that consistency up, I stopped. And I stopped because I knew it was going to come back, but it's just not yet. But when it does come back, it's going to be an absolute stormer. So this is the year for it to come back. It'll be back around April. It'll be easy to find because it'll be top of every single chart.
I absolutely love that. No, that's awesome, and I look forward to it coming back, that's for sure. So yeah, that's all really that I wanted to ask you about, Jamie. Is there any kind of key advice or words that you would like to leave with the audience today?
A lot of what I've already said. No one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
You literally, everything is at your fingertips now. We live in a world where Google can show you how to get, skinny, rich and happy. And it's all about using those tools effectively. So stop following idiots on social media. Stop following people that are going to lift you up, that are positive, and that are going to help you get better in life. And value your time and energy.
That is awesome. No, Jamie, it's been great having you on today. I will leave all of your Instagram and all of your other handles and website and stuff in the description for the podcast, so there's no need to confuse people, but I'm pretty sure it's just GrenadeJay.
Everything at GrenadeJay. You find me on everything and anything.
That alignment is optimal. Thank you for coming on today. I hope the listeners have enjoyed the podcast. See you later, Jamie.
Thank you.